This program is brought to you as a public service by Maui Causes. Maui Causes is a crowd-funded media production group that provides media production services to a variety of environmental and progressive causes here in Maui County. Visit us on the web at www.mauicauses.org. Welcome to another edition of Maui Causes. Hi, I'm Sam Small. Thanks to Sleepy John in the studio. Todd's on vacation, and we're a two-man show. Dedicated volunteers bringing perspectives that you're not likely to hear or read maybe in the Maui news. Maybe the occasional letter to the editor that sneaks through. But basically, you know, the local media is spun here to support and continue the basic level of oppression that everyone in this society, whether you were born here, whether your ancestors were born here, or whether you moved here 30 years ago, whether your family moved here 100 years ago, or whether you just moved from the mainland recently, you need to understand that you are living in an oppressed society. This is an occupied territory, and though it may not be military, it is certainly financial, because every aspect of our community structure, from our local government to the courts, all of these aspects are manipulated towards the benefit of large money interests. There are people in power here, and they have asserted control for 125 years. And you know, folks on the mainland are only beginning to wake up to the fact that corporations have sort of taken over their state governments, have taken over basically the federal government. They're only beginning to wake up to that fact. Well, that's a fact here in Hawaii for over 125 years. So again, Hawaii is a leader in the nation because here the people are rising up. Here the people are taking advantage of the technology that we have. Thank you, Kapu, for bringing us the ability to be able to speak these words to this community, for you and your children and your children's children to benefit from the change that we can bring to Hawaii if everybody participates, if you vote. Their system is stacked against your best interest. But it is your system too. It's the only one we have here. And through your participation, we can together change the way things are done on Maui and in Hawaii. Maui first, because it's a small community and we have the opportunity. It doesn't take that many votes, actually, to turn things around. And like never before, there are candidates that have stepped up to the plate, that are putting their necks on the block to represent you and your best interests. That hasn't happened here before. That is something new. And that is what gives us all the opportunity to take control of these islands back from these large money interests. One of the things that was finally brought to my attention, that I finally understood through the whole process of meeting with over 40 candidates in a vetting process to help determine who some of these local organizations might support and who should not be supported. One of the things that came to my understanding in this budget process, I kept waiting for the money to run out. I kept waiting for the community to rise up because everything's getting cut. All of the services and everything that people do need on a daily basis is getting cut because the money ran out. Why would the money run out? Because the corruption is huge. The amount of money that's drawn out of our public coffers that goes to developers, that goes to corporations in terms of benefits, is extraordinary. It's a huge amount of money that is lost. And I kept waiting for the money to run out. But what I understand now is that there's plenty of money. That's why nothing changes. We never get to that place where the community is so exploited that they rise up. We're feeling it in low-income housing because that aspect of land development has been given away consistently to developers 100% across the board. So no low-income housing ever gets built because it's a total giveaway. And that's an indicator, it should be to the community, how every aspect, every opportunity to draw money out of the system, your tax dollars, every opportunity to draw your tax dollars out of the system and put them into the hands of a business, every opportunity is exploited. Not one is missed. And that will continue for as long as you allow it. This show is dedicated to being a positive disruption to that system, because that system will destroy this island. That system has been working to destroy this island, and we have an opportunity to perhaps even put the brakes on and stop Maui from becoming Oahu. How much development should this island, just because you can develop something 100% and build out infrastructure and build out business on Maui 100% and turn it into Oahu, just because you can do that, doesn't mean you should. What does that mean for your children's future? What does it mean for the tourist industry? When will the tourist industry wake up that they are consuming themselves, that they are participating in a level of corruption that facilitates the things that they want to do, but is destroying everything that their business is based on? That's what we are facing in this current election, and why we bring candidates to you who we hope, at least they say, that they're willing to do the things to make a difference in these areas, so that we have development that is sustainable, that we look at the carrying capacity of the islands and work backwards from what amount of exploitation can go on and yet not destroy the place. That's the delicate balance that needs to be had here, especially in a tropical environment. That's the delicate balance that needs to be struck. And that means bringing things back from the corporation's interest, from the good old boys' interest. It means bringing that back into balance. We're not looking to stop everything. That would never work. But it's finding balance. And our government, our political process, is way out of balance. You can change that by participating in the vote. You have an opportunity, even for the first time this time, to walk in on the same day. Turn your head around. If you've never voted, turn your head around. This is the time. This is the opportunity. Because there are people who are putting their necks on the block to represent you and your best interests, your children's best interest, and the land, the environment's best interest, like never before. And that's why we bring to you candidates that are pledged, that do have an understanding of what's been going on here, and do have a willingness to bring change. And one of those arenas is through OHA. You actually do get to vote on who representatives for the community are. And one of the candidates is here with me today. Mr. Keamoko Kapu, please, in your local way, would you introduce yourself and tell us where you're from and who your people are?
Yeah. Aloha mai kako o Keamoko Kapu ko inoa no kaua mai oia mai lahana mai. My name is Kapu, and I am from Kaola Valley in Lahaina. And I mahalo for this opportunity to come and share a lot of the background of what I've been involved in for a long time.
You've been doing this work for a long time.
Yes, and I think it's about time to start stepping up because there is change coming tomorrow. You know, you have a lot of fears that the Native Hawaiian community right now is experiencing through federal recognition. You know, those are one of the biggest topics. A lot of the impacts that have been hitting Native Hawaiians in our community, such as Mauna Kea, what's been happening up in Mauna Kea. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of interesting that, you know, the lava is really taking over a small portion of that island.
Sending a message?
Yes. Then just in the political arena when it comes to Native Hawaiians being recognized as an entity because of what had occurred back in 1993 when President Clinton came to Hawaii and signed an apology bill into Public Law 103150.
Which was extraordinary.
Yes, it was very extraordinary for a lot of the Hawaiian people, but specifically what he did was he apologized to the Kingdom of Hawaii, literally. So when you look at that in terms as identifying the party that had been impacted by what had occurred in 1897, 1898, mm-hmm. doesn't include us. Reasons why is because for myself, I have a state ID, I have a United States birth certificate, you know, all those kinds of things that sort of puts me in a kind of interesting predicament when it comes to what jurisdiction that I fall under.
Sure, absolutely.
So when it came to the apology, who are they actually addressing to be the one to initiate the crimes that have been done to Native Hawaiians? So in 1979's Hawaii State Constitution, in Chapter 10, it was set aside to make sure that a body was formed to address the issues, the crimes, and a lot of the political disarray that happened to Native Hawaiians by the first formation of the Office of Hawaiian Affairs back in 1979 Constitution. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it was to allow Native Hawaiians a seat at the table to address certain issues when it came to the allocation of monies that came from the operation of the whole Hawaii under the Ceded Lands Trust.
Right.
You know, a lot of those things. And not too many people, even a lot of people that lived in Hawaii for generations, knew about why the Office of Hawaiian Affairs literally was formed. And at the same time, a lot of non-Hawaiians felt that they didn't want to get involved. Now today, because of a law that extended in 2000, there was a lawsuit, and it was a Rights Cayetano case to allow, because it was the body was discriminatory to allow non-Native Hawaiians to vote.
Right. A lot of non-Native people have no understanding why it is that they have the opportunity to vote on an OHA representative.
Yeah, even still today.
Right.
A lot of them is like, although they know there was a law that had occurred back in 2000 on the Rights Cayetano case based on discrimination of the Constitution, a lot of them really were to a point as to where that's not, you know, a lot of them said it's not our responsibility, that they felt that Native Hawaiians should at least have the opportunity to take on their own initiative.
Right.
Yeah, to select or elect representatives to sit in representation of them. So a lot of non-Hawaiians just stayed out. Right now, it's a crucial time because a lot of issues that had happened in the past, especially for like the Board of Trustees. I mean, when you start talking about when the state does a state audit, then you see a lot of in-house fighting and all these kinds of things. Well, this is even more that we need the non-Native Hawaiians to help step up to put the right people in place, to understand the background of each individual on their merits on helping not just the Native Hawaiian community, but more the general community. Because when we look at water, when we look at resources, when we look at development, it's a whole piece.
Yeah.
Hawaii shouldn't be ousted to say that, well, our issues are totally different from the general community's interests, because when you start looking at the state planning, county planning department, when they start going out and soliciting information to do development, one of those things is they got to do a cultural impact assessment.
Sure.
So they,
Thankfully, at least.
yeah. And before, in the past, they never went that route. I
Right.
mean, they only went to the people that they know that are knowledgeable about certain areas but are not from that area.
Right, and got an opinion. It was no real study. It was just an opinion.
Yeah, and that's why we always end up, like for myself, I always end up in front of the county council sharing my, my disappointments as pertaining to how these things are just rubber stamped and ramrodded forward without general consensus from the people that actually live there.
Right. People in those positions have seen how others in the system, in other municipal government positions and positions of authority, have abused the system, and so they've abused the system too through OHA. They've taken advantage of their positions in OHA, and we're seeing it. We see it in the papers. We see it through the audit. And some people will be held to task.
And in public media too. I mean, public media is very embarrassing for me as a Native Hawaiian to look at people that represent the best of our interests when it comes to Native Hawaiian rights and entitlements. The monies that are accumulated from OHA supposed to specifically address certain issues or concerns to help Native Hawaiians better themselves through management. So,
but it doesn't really happen.
Yeah, so I think right now is to bring back the Pono, to bring back a lot of the grassrooted, institutionalized mentality of Native Hawaiians on the ability that they have today. It's totally different from 30 years ago, yeah.
How so?
And why I say
because 30 years ago is not that long.
Yeah, well, why I say that is because there's trustees that are still in office 30 years ago.
Oh, yes.
So nothing ever changes.
Yeah, I always blame that on our modern medicine. Because even all the way up to the Rothschilds and the big banks, some of these old fuckers, they should be dead by now. Young, new people that agree with you, that also want to see change because they've seen the system manipulated against them for far too long. They are stepping up to the plate too. A lot of these candidates are local blood and they're young.
Yeah, especially in the county level, the state with TR running for state house.
Fantastic.
All those guys. I commend them.
Keani Rollins Fernandez is my, my heart sings just to know that she's alive and doing what she's doing.
And like for me, myself, being an advocate for so many years, showing up at the Planning Commission, the Cultural Resources Commission, being involved in the Burial Council, now I give gracious gratitude to the next generation for stepping up, because for myself, me and my wife looked at each other and say, are we the last? Showing up for all these meetings and advocating for what is right. Hopefully there's somebody listening there. Knowing that there's the younger generation willing to step up, encourages us, and it makes us feel better knowing that, okay, we get the line up. We get the next generation is willing to step into place to take on our issues.
And you have inspired many people. You are a teacher in your community. You're an organizer. You support, cultural programs. I mean, you have been living this work for decades.
Years ago, we started Kuleana Kuikai LLC. So Kuleana Kuikai LLC was the advocate arm with our nonprofit, but we felt we needed a 501c3 nonprofit to better our education with youths and a lot of the community things that we've done. But under the LLC, forming Kuleana Kuikai LLC helped us advocate in a different way pertaining to, these state development projects, 201G, and now there's a 201H that is right on the docket in front of the county. These kind of things, having a pure understanding of what fits in Hawaii, what doesn't fit in Hawaii, and these projects don't fit, so that's why I think Kuleana Kuikai was really important.
These are land development projects that you're talking about that are not appropriate for this island
Yeah.
for this location.
Yeah, like the 201H project, you know, there's a stickler to that saying that if you build less than 50 homes, at 49 homes, affordability would be what, like 3, 4, maybe 6 homes affordability. But the animal behind it is, if it's a 201H, then a lot of the developers are not required to do an EIS,
Right.
or an SMA, or an CIA, you know, and that's a state project.
And these are all, the people may not know the letters. These are, you know, environmental impact studies and cultural impact studies and the shoreline management
How
rules
it
and
would
regulations.
impact the community, so it's being cut up into small little pies.
And even, you know, under the SMA is a fascinating thing, you know, because that's the special management, or some people say shoreline management, but it's special management area that is mandated by the federal government to protect shoreline, but also to protect community involvement into what goes on the shoreline, because no one knows better than the community who actually uses those beaches.
Yeah.
And the federal government understands that. And long ago, the shoreline, the Special Management Area Program, Coastal Zone Management Act, mandated that the community have input into what goes on those
exactly.
properties.
Yeah.
And the ironic thing, you know, here, of course, is that that's a federal program, which then empowers and requires the state to administer the program, and the state, in its infinite wisdom, subcontracts that to Maui County. And the individual's job, who it falls to in the county, is the politically appointed director of public works, of planning, and corporation council.
Yeah.
Their job is to administer and support the regulations that come down from the federal government, but they are this is the mind-blowing part, they are the same exact individuals who write all of the exemptions to developers so that they don't have to follow the federal guidelines.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting, when we formed Kuleana Kuikai LLC, we filed a declaratory ruling in the State Land Use Commission. And while we were in the State Land Use Commission, it's kind of interesting that the Public Works Director gets with the developer and signs a hold harmless agreement protecting the colony, just in case anybody out there wanted to sue.
Right.
So we ended up in court. And by ended up in court, you know, that's one of those places that, you know, if you're a government agency, especially for the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, we've been into court so many times to address the impacts and issues, because they're missing the kind of the key element of Native Hawaiians and the practitioner use, or their uses of the shoreline.
Right.
Yeah. Our rights are being cut off.
Oh, yeah.
You know, all these kind of things.
And when it comes down to anyone having a willingness to be a subsistence farmer,
yeah,
they have the legitimate cultural right to engage in that lifestyle.
Yeah, the water.
The access, you know, to the water and clean water. The public trust doctrine, this is, you know, where it all kind of comes together, is the public trust doctrine is written into the Hawaiian State Constitution.
Yeah, 172-C. Like crazy. My whole life is like numbers now. I'm a taro farmer.
I can imagine. Right, you're a taro farmer, and you have, and you know all these numbers.
I'm a taro farmer, and I, you know, get the knack of understanding the county's fiduciary duties under 343. Then when you get into the state historic preservation, there's 13300 administrative rules, and there's laws under Section 6E. You know, all these kinds of things. If I didn't kind of lay out a while and pass the responsibilities to my sons and my next generation to do what I need to do to protect our interests. You know, that's why I look at, okay, there's a beneficial side of why I needed to get involved into understanding the rules of the game. At the same time, knowing that I don't cut myself short by teaching the knowledge that I need to the next generation, because for myself, it's about passing the torch. And for me, I can't pass the torch while I'm going out there doing all, sitting in boards and commissions. But then I found myself in my life saying that, I gotta do these kind of things.
Yeah.
Or it's my next generation.
There won't be anything left.
Suffer.
Yeah, there won't be anything left, because the exploitation is so extreme, and the resistance is at such a high level. Companies like Monsanto and the big ag companies that are having their way through the Department of Ag in Hawaii that are so unrestricted in what it is that they get to do. They are very, 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 very protective of this entitlement that they are enjoying. In 2014, Monsanto spent $12 million, the most money ever spent in the history of the United States on a local initiative. The GM moratorium was a local thing. It only affected Maui County, and Monsanto and Dow spent $12 million here.
Commercials.
You remember they had every half-hour television show, and they had to buy the television time on Oahu because Maui doesn't have its own TV stations. So they're paying for all of those Oahu.
Even on YouTube, I saw a lot of stuff on YouTube.
They promoted it in every way that they possibly could. And as a community, we rose up. And we presented, we created the whole thing because it was a community initiative from the beginning. Enough petition signatures were created to put a petition on the ballot. And the community rose together around this. And the same way, the community needs to embrace and understand the role of OHA, and the things that OHA could possibly be doing that they aren't doing, because the cultural boundary that is represented by the Hawaiian culture and the cultural practices, that's what's missing. Yeah. That's the integral part that's missing, because that's what would keep our system balanced. Yeah. And it's been stripped away. The voice that you've been, providing has been ignored and marginalized for decades, for far too long. And you were right to be doing it. I congratulate you and thank you for doing it all of these years, and totally support you in going forward to do it today and to inspire the younger generation to do it as well. There's more to our show in just a moment. This program is brought to you as a public service by Maui Causes. Maui Causes is a crowd-funded media production group that provides media production services to a variety of environmental and progressive causes here in Maui County. Visit us on the web at www.mauicauses.org. This is the opportunity to show that how out of balance things are. When they rush in at Iao Valley, when they rush in and start moving rocks immediately, spending big money immediately because the power interests, the water company, was put at risk, and they couldn't allow that. So they immediately jumped into action to redirect what nature did. Nature moved that river
through
away.
Proclamation.
So that was, just one instance of how, the cultural responsibilities and rights were overridden by the corporate interest. It's just one small example, but it shows how complete their ability to do that is. And these powers that be don't want to give an inch. One can only imagine that if $12 million was pumped into this local political economy in 2014 by Monsanto, that how much money is coming in here to try and get the control back. They are very, very fearful of Alika Atai. They are doing everything that they can to manufacture reasons for people to question, anybody that goes against the system. They've dredged back candidates, council members that provided cover for these corporations for decades, years ago, are suddenly back and just at a time where we thankfully have young people who understand that there's a different way of doing things, that our system does not have to be designed exclusively for the benefit of business, that our system can be balanced so that business can exist, but also the people's needs can be met. That we can do that if we have that right balance. And the cultural perspective that you represent and that you've been promoting for all of these years, and that you, I think, can work with OHA to bring even further back into the picture, that's what we need.
Yeah, I always talked about how important collaboration was, but a long time ago, it didn't hit me on why collaboration was important, to work with DLNR, to work with accounting agencies. But, being a part of OHA, that's been the missing element for a long time.
Long time.
I mean, when you start talking about issues about the GMO remodification of taro, when that came about, OHA should have been at the forefront, OHA should have been in the front of everybody saying that, taro, haloa nakalau kapalili, is blood related to Native Hawaiians.
Yeah, sure.
So when the bigger issue of talking about genetic modified foods, it seemed like the Hawaiian initiative was kind of, on a sidebar, because you didn't have anybody coming up and speaking on behalf of only the general community, like for ourselves as taro farmers.
Because the plantation society had so thoroughly taken over these lands that that Hawaiian voice was completely missing. And the water is, taro, back then lit a flame. Kohulave lit a flame. Walter Riddian and those guys, lit a fire. That wait a minute. It's just like, wait a minute. We do have rights in this.
Is at risk.
Yeah, we do have rights in this. And that, it was right back then, and it's still right today. And it is the missing element that will bring our society, local society, back into balance.
And that's one of the reasons why in 2006 we initiated the Ahamoku Council system. So,
because there's wisdom there. There's experience and there's understanding and wisdom in that structure.
Yeah, and trying to get that passed in legislation back in 2006, we had to go through whole years and years of getting the practitioners together, and how important the generational knowledge and how we need to pass that down from one generation to the next, being used as just sitting at the table to consult with other agencies saying that, these projects ain't gonna work unless you look at these so-called things, a methodology of certain areas and how all those things are fixed.
And some of that knowledge is experience is very, very simple, and very, very vital. If people don't understand the Ahamoku system and what that's all about, please, this Hali should not be explaining it. Please, you do.
The Ahamoku system, basically, you're looking at an island in a topographical sense to say that when the Crown put together the resource management of our islands, they took it from the peaks of the mountains and they drew it to the ocean.
The resource management.
The resource management.
The resource management. And that's the vital lifeblood of the Aina.
Yeah, so Maui has 12 mokus. And within those 12 mokus, the resources within those mokus were only specifically to provide for just that specific moku alone.
Right.
So you have ridges and all these, but the methodology,
because those are the people living on that land. Yeah. They know it best.
And they know it best. In the community, we look for people who are fishermen, who are farmers, so many generations of fishing and farming that they understood. And I always encourage a lot of other people, like the non-Hawaiian communities that's been living in Hawaii for a long time. What do they know about the resources? Like Maui Cooperative Fishing Association, made up of all Japanese, Denamo blood.
Right.
Yeah? But they're key components to sit at our table. We have farmers that been on our islands, like the Watanabe farms up in Kula. They've been here for generations. Their whole livelihood when they moved to Hawaii, they were farmers.
Right.
Yeah,
and they understand the land. They
yeah.
understand the needs to be able to grow food, which is a massive issue here.
They don't look at the land as a commodity. They look at the land. They grab the soil. They smell the soil. They throw it in the wind, and they say, "Okay, this is a good place to grow."
Right.
Other people, they look at lands as being a commodity. And next thing you know, they build greenhouses and growing everything in a greenhouse. Mm-hmm. Nobody trusts the environment nowadays.
Well, it's challenging, but even the desire to grow things in a greenhouse is better in certain locations than putting
especially
in
lower areas. Yeah.
Than putting in a 2-acre gentleman farm.
Yeah.
that pretends to be an agricultural thing, but is actually just a mechanism for a developer to make money and sell a overpriced house to somebody that hardly ever is even in the house.
Mm. So my position in here is I'm the CEO for Ahamoko Maui Inc.
Uh-huh.
And a lot of the correspondence that comes from the county, state, as well as the federal agencies when they're looking at potential areas to put up windmills or solar plants or drill a well, the correspondence comes to me.
So, that is then a position that sits above all 12 and helps to network all 12 mokus together.
Yes, so I'm kind of the administrator to all 12 mokus. When I get information that the mokus don't get,
right,
like in Kula or Kapu,
right,
small community, but a lot of things they want to do out there.
Well, and they have a lot of very specific needs. Because they get cut, they get cut off. I mean, they were completely cut off just a couple of months ago. The rains came, washed out the roads on both sides, and they were isolated for a strong period of time.
Yeah. So when you look at different representatives from the different mokus, at least the county and the state agencies know who to go to.
Right.
If they're looking for somebody that is knowledgeable of the ocean resources in K&I, then we give it to the Ko'olau Moku representative, right. And the Ko'olau Moku representative would specifically tell the county or the state that you gotta go see this kupuna.
Right.
Yeah, so also the Ahamoku system was about incorporating traditional resource management into today's policies.
Right.
County,
right.
state.
Right.
Yeah, so
and which could save the system a tremendous amount of money. That developments should be done in harmony with the understanding of nature and with the understanding of the survival of these cultural practices.
And that's one of the reasons why we did Ka'apuni. When we walked around the islands, we did the torch at Moku'ula.
Right.
We're actually doing a walk assessment of the whole island of 197 miles.
Right.
Then in the ending, we found out that the county's map that they use as a resource had missing areas in it.
Uh-huh.
So we're like, okay, with the county, we're at the State Department telling them that because this area you have so many bays, but Hononana is missing. When you go to Hana, the Ahupua'a boundaries are all mixed up. You get 3 names of the same Ahupua'a. And we taught our state agency the reason why that is important when you're doing an environmental impact statement,
right,
and these missing elements are not from that area,
right.
How can you just get by saying, okay, you know what, the potential development isn't going to impact anything historic, and they rubber stamp this thing, and we're looking at this thing saying, wait a minute, okay, now first of all, who signed off on it?
Right.
And it's normally State Historic Preservation Division. And where are they? They're not here.
They're not here. They have no experience of it at all.
Yeah.
And this is where some of these job positions get very easy if you are told what to do.
Yeah, like robots.
Like robots, and that happens. Here in Maui County, the political structure is with the authority that the mayor has to appoint friends and people as directors to departments that have absolutely absolutely no experience. They're political appointees. Our committees, our commissions, the planning commissions are all political appointees. And the planning commission directly, local Maui planning commission directly affects a lot of the things that you and I have been talking about. And that is an absurd system where the mayor is able to, the council gets to approve who's appointed to that commission, but there's no oversight. A ridiculous amount of authority.
And I put my name in.
To be considered for that, because you are the kind of person that would be appropriate on that, and just the same way, you are the person who would be appropriate to be a representative on OHA, and that's why people should pay attention to that.
Yeah, OHA would play a big pivotal part in the cohesiveness on how government needs to run. You have an entity on the Office of Hawaiian Affairs that, specifically they say that only represents the best interests of Native Hawaiians. No, it doesn't. It's straight across the board.
Right.
And I think that was our problem all this time, where a lot of people of non-Hawaiian blood said, well, I don't want to intervene in there because they don't feel
they have the right to participate because they don't know anybody. Here it's all a popularity contest, so they don't even recognize the names. So they're completely in the dark, and they don't know who to vote for, and that's why I'm particularly thankful that your willingness to come on the show to represent yourself. Who else is running in the OHA race that people should consider voting for? We have
there's 5 open seats right now, 3 at large, 1 Oahu representative, and myself running against Trustee Hulu Lindsay. So there's a total, and this is the madness we ever seen this happen. I mean, in a county level in Maui County, and what's happening over here, that's historical. How many people stepping up to the plate. It's even more historical on how OHA, now they have a total of, I think, 22 to 24 candidates running for 5 positions. And we have a lot of new young blood, like how Maui County, a lot of new young blood stepping up.
It is. It's a phenomenal time. It's fascinating to witness it, and very satisfying to know that the things that we've been doing here as a community in these past couple of years is bearing fruit.
And I'm one out of the 24 representatives that are running. Myself, I'm running for the Maui trustee position. And the hardest part for me is trying to get the word out to all the different islands that you can vote for the Maui representative.
Right.
Then a lot of people say, well, it's wrong. I know it's wrong. Everybody knows it's wrong. It should be a geographical voting, but it's a nonpartisan race. So how interesting it is that Maui only makes up probably about 18 to 20% of the voter polls.
Right. Statewide.
Yeah. And Oahu makes up 51% of the voter polls. So I find myself within this past month went to Oahu 4 times.
Right. Because that's where the voters are.
Yeah, majority, 51% of the voters. Then I gotta find myself flying to Kauai in a month from now. Then I go to the Big Island, and Molokai and Lanai is easy for me, so I'll save those for last. But it's horrendous, and for me, I can say that I go to me and my wife just made a loan to get some funds so I can fly.
Yeah, sure.
Just to fly and not to campaign, and
you don't have to take a canoe.
Yeah, I would love to take a canoe.
But it's a longer trip when you take a canoe. Very satisfying, I'm sure.
Yeah, but it's hard. OHA is hard, but I need to get in, and there's a lot of people that feel passionate the same way on how we need to fix the problem within as a whole, not separately. So OHA should be in front of the county. OHA should be in front of the state advocating for, not just the sense of how things are changing in the legislature when it comes to laws and development, especially water. On the west side, we had the in-stream flow standard set. And my valley, believe it or not, is set at 3.34 million gallons of water that needs to go back into the river.
Right.
So does it hurt me, or does it make things better for me? All I know is now that the state made that assessment for 4 different valleys at a different amount, Kaula will see life again. The indigenous fauna and species are now returning.
Are returning, which many people said that they would never return.
Yeah,
but
so
now
we have O'opu.
now that the water has been percolating through that watershed for enough years, it took what, 5 years?
Yeah.
To be able to have the consistent water flow in those riverbeds for those river ecosystems to rebloom.
To sustain itself again with the natural habitat.
And they have, the shrimp have come back.
Yeah.
And other species have
by even a lot of the fauna. You know, from the water intake area was all dry and desolate because the water was being diverted.
Right.
Now there's water in the stream. Now you see the trees are growing. Now you hear the birds singing.
Right.
You know, just that alone. You know, a lot of people say,
and that's,
yeah, but how are we gonna get our water for our flush our toilet? How are we gonna get the water for water our plants? Especially in the private subdivision where I live, everybody is worried about their swimming pools.
Right.
You know, I mean, I'm not trying to be sarcastic or anything.
No. This is the level of concern that many residents have. So what is the answer? Is their swimming pool at risk? Are they at risk of not having water to have their lawn plush so that they can play golf on their lawn?
If people knew what Hawaii consisted of from the beginning before they moved here, they wouldn't try to change anything. You know, the livelihood of how we live.
Right.
And it's always overwhelming for me to see that a lot of our Hawaiian community, as well as our non-Hawaiian community, you know, I don't know what's been happening lately, but we have a lot of homeless population too in our town.
Yes, more and more.
Yeah, so
because the developers have everything has been given away.
Yeah, the economy just all of a sudden shot someplace else, and next thing you know, I get families that don't even have no place to go.
They have no place to live.
Yeah, so that's another area where Office of Hawaiian Affairs can help. You get the Department of Hawaiian Homelands only provide Native Hawaiians 50% blood.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So anybody less than 50%, 49% and less, they're second-class citizens.
Yes, that's how they're treated. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
So under
and
the Office of Hawaiian
there is no
Affairs,
safety net anymore. There is no safety net.
Yeah. So through the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, they need to be the developer to start providing homes for the Hawaiians of lesser blood.
Sure. They're in the position to do that.
Yeah.
And the process of creating affordable housing needs it's never going to happen if it's just the developer's responsibility. Mm-hmm. It has to be done as kind of a private-public partnership, because it's an organization like OHA that can do the coordination to be able to manifest this thing in a way that will support people lifetime.
Yeah, like they talked about pulling a certain percentage from a lot of the developers, so you go into an account, but then they say that the money that goes into an account can help build the rail in a wall. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute.
Well, this is always some of the problem with Maui is that Maui, when it comes to, compared to Oahu, we hardly exist.
Yeah.
We hardly exist in their minds. It is a consistent challenge, no question about it.
We're outnumbered in the general vote when they start wanting to, constitutionalize, place something in a ballot on pulling revenues from the private sector, so the private sector would be the one to initiate the funds to have all these things built. Maui, our concern was every time Department of Land and Natural Resources want to do a canvas regulation, we get stuck with decisions that are made in Oahu.
Been in Oahu, by people who have no idea what they're talking about.
Yeah, they look at a big map and they say, here's the problem.
Right.
They never go to ground zero to figure out what the problem is.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's the kind of thing that can bring change. And you've had success representing your cultural lineage in terms of land, of going up against what A and B.
No.
to be able
West
to
Maui Land Company.
West Maui Land Company.
But specifically, it was a conglomerate from them known as Makila Land Company.
Mm-hmm.
So West Maui Land Company has, interestingly enough, Olowalu Elua, Launio Poko, Mahana Lua Nui, Kawaula, LLC, then you have Makila Land Company, then you have Kaoma Land Company. And I just tell people that AmFact, the Big Five, gave birth to the dragon with 7 heads. And I've been in litigation with Makila Land Company for over 20 years. But this specific case, I would say, going on 18 now. Mm-hmm. Because it's still in appeals. They're still trying to appeal it.
Yeah, it's still not done.
Yeah, so all these years.
But there was a major ruling that allowed you to take possession and control of Crown lands back from this corporate conglomerate that controlled them for decades.
Yeah, they filed a quiet title adverse possession claim based on a warranty title deed that was transferred to them from Pioneer Mill. Mm-hmm. So I challenged them pro se back in 2001. And from 2001, what had occurred was the judge made determination for the land company's judgment to the plaintiff. And it went into an appeal for 6 years. It came out of the appeal, and the appellate court says remanded to Keamoko Kapu, but needed to go back to Second Circuit Court for final summary judgment. Right. So 9 years waiting out on whether or not we're going to go back to Circuit Court. They waited 9 years to attack me from all different angles on other cases that was pending. Then finally they came out and said, well, we're going to continue the battle. And there was a negotiation, 4 days negotiation through Judge Cahill, having these guys come to some kind of consensus or a plea bargain. Mm-hmm. They refused to, so the judge says, okay, this is going to go to a jury trial.
Wow.
So never in the years, I don't know how many years it was, and my attorney says, well, about 40 years. There was one in Big Island, but not as extensive as the one that we have here in Maui.
A jury trial.
A jury trial.
And why do you think that they wouldn't plea bargain? They wouldn't come to some kind of agreement?
It was all because of the water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't want to give an inch.
No, where the property is, the 24-inch pipe goes right across the property. So the fear about losing an interest to the land, specifically the pipe, would shut down their whole development of Launio Poko and the surface water that came through that valley.
Got it.
That's the only pipe that traverses through that area that provides water into the hydro system, and the hydro system operates the wells that they drilled for potable water.
Right.
So non-potable and potable water, we're looking at the deciding factor, and that's why they never gave up on a case. They always held me up against the wall.
Right. And they will continue to try and assert themselves, because they are, in fact, no longer an agricultural company. Yeah. It's now land development. It's now everything, really boils down to what happens to the land. Land development here really is the oil. It's the real value of what goes on here. And it is the arena in which so much corruption and abuse has been going on here for so long.
Controlling the lifeblood of the land.
Yeah.
For myself, I wish many years ago that this was to end, because for me, I got into this because of my children. Mm-hmm. And knowing that when the jury made the determination saying that Makila Land Company owns nothing, in fact, whoever they bought them from stole the land in 1878. For myself, and the jury made a determination saying Keamoko Kapu owns 100% of those lands. For me, it wasn't the victor. For me, it was looking at my children, knowing that, okay, we get another generation that we're going to be within the lands of our ancestors once again. But it's hard dealing with these kind of conglomerates, especially when their whole background has to do with real estate.
Sure.
And water, now that the state making the determination of the in-stream flow assessment again, now they're getting even more worried on whether or not, they got development pending down the road, and it doesn't guarantee them, because now the state is involved. The county is more stringent. I yet to see on the county side.
They are getting more stringent?
Well, I dealing with the 201H project on why they always keep bringing it back. Yeah, that thing should be, that's bogus. Don't require somebody to piecemeal 3 projects and say they're only doing 49 homes on each 3. Yeah, combine it all, put it back to the state, do the right thing, make the state make the determination on whether or not these developments will be viable for affordability. Yeah, and don't just throw the dog a bone and give it to the county and let the county just ramrod their way through the process of allowing these guys to develop those homes.
Right.
So I think that's one of the main reasons why I stepped up to the plate of really pushing the bar to run for the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, because I think there needs to be some serious collaboration between the county and the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. I really believe that. And knowing that I have a good relationship with the county, within the county, I can provide a better relationship within the state agencies, to make sure that these things work for the benefit of the general community, that we have a say at the table.
Right.
It's a bottom to top. I always think bottom to top management system, because the top to bottom never work.
No, exactly. Keimoku Kapu, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for all the good work that you've done for your community and in our community for all these years, being an inspiration to many of the young people that are running for office today.
Wow.
Because with your leadership and your inspiration, we can bring that balance back and use the Hawaiian cultural practices as that braking mechanism, appropriate braking mechanism, especially appropriate because it's developed over thousands of years of cultural practice living here successfully. So if we can bring that voice and that vision back into our system, we can bring the entire system back into balance.
Bring back the harmony.
Yeah.
I'm all for the work that you do.
Sure. It's an honor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Aloha. Join us again on Maui Causes. And remember, vote in the August 11th primary and in November as well. This program is brought to you as a public service by Maui Causes. Maui Causes is a crowd-funded media production group that provides media production services to a variety of environmental and progressive causes here in Maui County. Visit us on the web at www.mauicauses.org.